picture with these words on Picasso. I was eating and you was just tweeting. I ran it up because I'm being chased by demons. I was eating and you was just tweeting. I ran it up because I'm being chased by demons.
When asked about slavery, what comes to your mind first?
Slavery is the Atlantic slave triangle.
Racism, physical abuse.
People being used against their will, children, women, men.
How long do you think slavery has existed for?
I feel like it's existed forever.
Since start time.
I think that slavery has existed since basically the start of time.
As far back as time began, I would imagine.
Now let's go 2,000 years back in time to the Roman Empire. Slaves were very important to the Romans. Without slaves, the wealthy of Rome would not be able to live the lifestyle what they wanted to. Slaves served in household, agriculture, mines, the military, manufacturing workshops, even construction, and a wide range of services within the city. As many as 1 in 3 of the population in Italy, or 1 in 5 across the empire, were slaves. Slaves were people who were frequently captured in battle and sent back to Rome to be sold. However, even abandoned children could also be bought up as slaves. Also, the law stated that fathers could sell their older children if they were in need for money. The living conditions of slaves were flexible. This was dependent on their role. Slaves partook in strenuous activities. If a slave ran away, they were guilty and prosecuted for theft. This is because they were seen as property of their master. If the slaves were caught, then they were inflicted to torture as a meaning to frighten other slaves. But despite their status as property, Roman slaves had the opportunity to buy themselves and gain their freedom.
Do you know about the slavery that took place in the Roman Empire?
No, I don't.
Yes, I believe they were owned by Roman law, and if they lost against who they were fighting against, then they were used as slaves.
I know a little bit about it. It was when they lose a war, even in the war they use slaves as soldiers when the actual soldiers die. So they use the slaves if normal soldiers die. Yeah, that's it.
I do, not a lot, but I do know that the Roman Empire used their slaves for big roles such as like physicists and accountants and stuff, because there were so many slaves from so many different places that they were obviously just normal people doing big things in other countries and stuff.
This slave trade I'm covering next is the most known slave trade. Slaves were common knowledge and practiced in America in the 17th and 18th century. Slaves were brought from other African tribes that had more slaves from those who lost in battle and kidnapped by slave traders and sent to America. Approximately 12.5 million African citizens were shipped to America, and approximately 10.7 million survived the treacherous journeys. The majority of slaves were bought at markets and placed on plantations to work there for their masters. On the plantation, the slaves were forced to harvest crops such as tobacco and cotton. The living conditions were dire and dirty. They were treated like less than animals. Slavery was abolished on February 22nd, 1807. Even though slavery was abolished over 200 years ago, African Americans to this day are still getting backlash and not looked as equal.
Do you know about the Atlantic slave trade?
I've heard of it, like I've seen it on TV, like the adverts for the charities and stuff like that.
I know how they get lots of slaves from different parts of the world. So I think it was the Caribbean and UK, I think it was something like that. I'm not sure, or UK or whatever it was. And they put them on ships and they ship them around the world to different parts of Europe where they need them and things like that, where people like slave owners need them.
Obviously, they take slaves from Africa or the Caribbean or like North America and move them to the UK or anywhere in Europe in a triangular, on the ships and stuff.
$400. What can that get you? A phone? Some Supreme? Who knows? An Off-White t-shirt? Actually, a human being in Libya. November 19th, 2017. Protesters gathered near the Libyan embassy in central Paris to denounce the slave auctions and urge authorities to act quick. Celebrities and sporting stars are addressing this problem, such as Paul Pogba celebrating his goal for Manchester United with a handcuffed gesture, highlighting the problem of migrants in Libya. Different countries are working alongside with Libya to end this disaster for good.
Do you know about the current slavery in Libya today?
No, I don't.
Yes, slaves are being auctioned off. I read an article once about a man that was offering somebody as a digger, and he was auctioned off.
Yeah, there's refugees that want to have a better life. There's a spot in Libya. It's like a transit spot, and they try to get a better life. And the people slave owners, they go there and they just take slaves. They take people and they just use them for their own benefit, sort of thing. They can do errands that they don't want to do.
Now, some scary facts. These are a little closer to home than any of you think. This could be happening literally down the road. British children are being forced into modern slavery. A total of 5,145 potential victims were referended into the system last year. Most are being used for sex or as drug mules by country line groups that supply from urban centrals into rural area, often exploiting young and vulnerable people to distribute their products. Some of the children found in the trade also have mental health issues and are drug users themselves, coming from broken homes, traumatic lives, state care, or having been reported missing, the NHS say. This is personally disgusting.
Do you know about the current slave trade in England today?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that there is still like sex trafficking and like unwilling prostitution in the UK at the moment. Like a lot of places in London probably still have a lot of prostitutes who are unwillingly there.
I know it's mainly about prostitution and minors that are used for just any jobs and things like that. But yeah, mainly just prostitution and that.
Yes, again, it would be children can be used as slaves. There'd be adults are being forced to do things that they wouldn't want to do, and sometimes use children to do acts for them that they wouldn't want to do.
Now it's time to answer the questions I have been asking. These are my answers from before I conducted my research. African slave trade. Few hundred years. I do, but not as badly as it did before. No. Yes. No. Not at all. Thank you for watching my documentary. I hope you learned something new and enjoyed it. Goodbye.
I was eating and you was just tweeting. I run it up because I'm being chased by demons. I run it up because I'm being chased by demons.